Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We've done the first round of finals. Wasn't that
Yay.
fun? There were so many bad games, Liam. The games, they were bad. One game was really good. Most of them were bad. And you know what? I don't know what else I expected, apart from the closest final series in the world. Trademark. That didn't happen. Well, it still might, but it hasn't so far.
No, Jesse,
Whoops.
it didn't happen. It was always bound to happen, though, this way. Like, as soon as the AFL starts talking about something, just the life, the vibes of everything just goes the opposite direction, which is fine. We had some promise. We had some disappointment across the games in terms of what we expected from finals footy, but that's okay. We'll talk all about it tonight here on the Centimetre Perfect podcast. Well done, Jesse, for remembering the name. Congratulations. Tell the people where they can find us, please.
They can find us on Instagram and on YouTube at CMPerfectAFL and on your preferred podcasting platform, Centimetre Perfect and AFL Podcast. That one is significantly easier to remember for me than the other one. I don't know why you had to make the other one so hard.
Well, there's a very good reason for that, because Centimetre Perfect was taken by other people. So I had to fix it up a little bit. So, CM Perfect, I can remember it quite easily. It's right there, Centimetre Perfect. Don't forget the underscore before the AFL, though, as well. You have to remember that for next time, Jesse.
Look, if people can't find it having got to that length of trouble, then I don't know what to tell them. I truly don't. But Liam, we're through week one of finals.
We are.
Well done us. It's been a busy week. How are you? What's been happening in your world?
Not a lot, man. Not a lot. As mentioned last week, it was my birthday on the weekend, so
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm feeling every bit of the 39 years old that I am today. After that weekend, I can't even do the most basic, mundane going out anymore, Jesse. It wasn't even that hectic. I went out for like a few beers and then stayed home on Sunday afternoon, and I was just so sore, on Monday. This is what you have to look forward to, my friend.
That is so sad.
You do have a good 16 years.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? But just look after yourself. Look after your body, man. It's a fragile thing sometimes. But no, that's what was busy for me. I was catching the footy in between, which was great. So it was a very, very full-on weekend for me, Jesse. Very full-on weekend. How about you, man? How have you been since the last time we spoke?
Good. Finals, we managed to watch all of the games of the finals. I think it'd be weird if I didn't. I managed to call a game as well. First time commentating in over 2 years. Made a return behind the microphone for some preliminary final action. Thank you. Thank you for listening as well.
Yes. It was quite fun. I'll give you some live feedback on the podcast, if that's okay. Can I give you some feedback, Jesse?
Go for it.
How many diagonal kicks can there be in a game?
Plenty. And it was clearly my watchword in that first quarter.
I nearly texted you at quarter time and said, challenge for the second quarter, Jesse. Find another word. Get the thesaurus out. Find another word for diagonal and see if you can chuck it in there.
I liked the diagonal.
You did like the diagonal, but no, you're a natural, Jesse. It was very good to listen to you do your thing. It's almost like you've been doing it since, for time and memorial. You could be better. You're better than most of the AFL guys already, mate.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep it up, my friend. Keep it up. But no, very busy. But you know what? Lots of footy to talk about. We're going to start a bit differently this week, Jesse. We're going to start with the game reviews. And we're going to get them done and out of the way. And then we're going to go into our reviews of the seasons of the first 6 of the bottom 10. I could have said that better. I didn't.
That was dreadful.
Thank you very much. But no, I'm going to pep you up, Jesse. You seem a bit flat today. Was it because the footy wasn't as good as you were hoping? What's going on, man? So. Come on. Yeah, you seem disappointed.
Well, I think I just talk about Fremantle this week, and it's kind of like I know I have to, and that makes me a bit cross. And yeah, it doesn't help that Port Adelaide and Carlton took annual leave for the first week of finals. Don't know why. They were predicted to be there, but they clearly booked off their annual leave nice and early. So good for them.
Well, Port did it wrong because they still have to play footy. But let's go through the games. We'll start with Thursday night. First of all, positive. Let's talk about the positives, Jesse. Thursday night footy was back.
Yes,
Happy
I love
days.
Thursday night footy. Thursday
night footy is fantastic. And look, we'll take it game by game. Port Adelaide, 7-12-54, destroyed by Geelong, 2018, 138. Boy, howdy. Now, Jesse, we were watching this game, obviously from our separate abodes, and we were texting each other during the game. And for the first half of that game, we were both going, this is a cracking game of football. A cracking game of football. So much so that I texted my dear old dad and said, Dad, are you watching this game? He was like, there's a game on tonight? I was like, get with the program, Dad. But he switched it on just in time for the second half. And then what happened? I had to apologize to him.
That was really weird.
Yeah, it was.
Geelong looked like they were going to dominate, and then Port woke up and promptly went back to bed.
Yeah. It's almost like they were
within minutes of waking up.
No, it's like someone threw a splash of cold water in their face. They woke up and just went, oh, fuck. Started flailing around for a couple of seconds. Then, yeah, they were like, oh, it's all good. Back to snooze town we go. But, man, the first half was good. First half was
fine.
Fine. Okay, fine. I will pay you fine. But yeah, the second half, Geelong just came out and did annoying Geelong things by showing how good they are. Why are they so good, Jesse? Why are they so good? Don't answer that question. But full team performance, led by Geelong legend Patrick Dangerfield. Strong cameos: Max Holmes, Jeremy Cameron, Tyson Stengel, amongst others. They looked really, really good.
Can we get negative?
Oh, well, that's why I kept talking for as long as I possibly could, so I could just kind of get some of the game recap out before I threw over to you, because obviously you have some.
Well, this is game recap too.
Yeah, I know. You got some stuff to get off your chest, Jesse. Go on, get it off.
I truly could not believe how poorly Port Adelaide set up defensively in that final. The fact that on multiple times Jeremy Cameron and Tyson Stengel were surveying 375 square meter blocks of land behind the defensive line to put an offer in on, with seemingly no sense of urgency from the Port Adelaide defenders to go and sort that out. It was borderline humiliating at times. Port Adelaide's backline, on paper, is up there with the best in the competition. Yet
Agreed.
Defensively, from a pure technical standpoint, that's got to be one of the worst defensive performances we have seen by any team this season. And I am very conscious of the fact that Sydney went to Adelaide Oval earlier this season and got pumped by 112 points. For Port Adelaide to turn away in a final was disgraceful. Now, was Zach Butters carrying a knock coming into that game? Potentially. But it was very clear he wasn't at his best for that first half. He gets subbed out. The game's already over. That has to hurt. Rosé didn't have the impact he would have liked. Horne-Francis looked finals made in that first quarter, but no one
100%.
really seemed to want to go with him.
No. And that's one thing I noticed as well. Like Horne-Francis seemed to be the guy who was just trying to carry everyone off on their back. And there was a few instances of that across this weekend, like someone strapping the team to the back and just going. And Horne-Francis was giving it a red hot crack. He looked like he was there to play. Outside of him, Aliir was handily beaten across the ground most of the night as well. Or just speaking to your defense criticism as well. Mitch Georgiades might be one of the worst field kicks in the competition, if not for that game alone. But unless he's kicking for goal, and even then, he can't do anything with that ball.
Georgiades reminds me a lot of similar age Taberner at Freeman.
Sure.
Tools are clearly there, and there's a player in there, but the player hasn't developed, and we're getting to the point now where we can't call him a developing key forward. He's probably a year off being Mitch Georgiades the key forward. So if this is the output we're going to get, and I can put Todd Marshall in this boat because he has reached that zenith already in terms of his development, I think that's a problem for Port. And what we saw from Charlie Dixon was actually quite depressing because he was rubbish.
What did we see from Charlie Dixon? I honestly didn't even know he was playing. I think the only time I saw him was when he was getting frustrated because he wasn't getting any ball at all. But that's kind of been the tail of the tape for the season for Charlie, I find. He's been kind of missing for a lot of the games this season, and this was no different. Very, very easily covered for this game.
So he was disappointing, I felt. But you could extend that to most of the Port Adelaide side. I mean, there were enough players missing there across the team. In fact, there was only one individual player that was missing more across the entire finals round. And we'll get to him in the next game. But Port, simply put, disaster. And the type of blow that can not only destabilise a final series, but destabilise a window.
Destabilise window, and also I think even old Ken has come out and said, look, he knows the writing's on the wall for him if it's a straight sets departure. He seems to be of the understanding that if there's no finals win, there's no Ken. That seems to be the way it is going. But we'll move on to the next game. Let's come on, Jesse. We got to pick you up, mate. We got to pick you up. But come on, let's do the dance. So that's
I'm not dancing on
fun,
this
fun,
podcast.
Hawthorn win. Fun, fun, Hawthorn win. Yeah, there he goes. Yeah, come on,
Very
mate.
fun.
Come
God,
on, mate.
I love Jack Ginnivan so much. Can we talk about Jack at the pub before we talk about the game? Because it technically happened beforehand, so I feel like we need to talk about it first.
What do you need to say about Jack at the pub?
First of all,
Yeah.
why is this a story? I don't care. Second of all, God forbid an AFL player has any form of life in any description.
Yeah.
I don't accept the argument of, oh, well, if he was at Collingwood, he'd be hated, but because he's at Hawthorn, he'd be loved. I don't accept that argument at all, because I like Jack Ginnivan at Collingwood. I like Jack Ginnivan at Hawthorn. He's a fun player. I actually wish we had managed to get him to this side as part of the Schultz trade. Didn't happen. Jack seems happy. I can't begrudge that. That seems to have worked out for everyone. But unfortunately, we have this really weird obsession with a 22-year-old man, and it's a bit odd that we have every single chief football reporter, I'd say just about bar none, obsessed with talking about why Jack had a lemon, lime and bitters, or maybe a water, or potentially even a beer, God forbid, at a pub before 9 p.m, before a day that he had to go to work, because no one's ever done that in their life before.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't really understand it. I mean, maybe, Harley Reid's out of the competition now. They need another young person to pick on now. That's Jack. And Jack just kind of, he absorbs that kind of stuff, or he attracts it, I should say.
He does.
Like he's such a charismatic young fella that no matter what he does, people are going to be watching what he's doing. And it's those kinds of people that always seem to get people trying to bring them down in some capacity. And that's just kind of how it is. And the AFL media and all the news media have to have something to cover. Especially, there wasn't much to cover after the Thursday night game, so they needed something to talk about. Oh, look, there's Jack at the pub. Let's talk about that instead. But hey, do you know what? If for nothing else, Jesse gave us a cracker of a goal celebration. And look, and that's all we can really ask for, isn't it really? He doesn't give two shits, Jack. He doesn't give a fuck.
No, he doesn't.
See you later. But it rolls on. The Hawks train rolls on. Western Bulldogs 9-8-62 defeated by Hawthorn 14-15. 99. Man, they look good, don't they? They look fun. They're just a fun team to watch. I don't want anyone else to win this year. I just want Hawthorn to keep winning. Why? So I can keep watching them. And then we'll see what happens after September ends. I mean, probably can't watch them anymore. Can watch replays maybe.
Yeah, KO doesn't self-destruct, although my subscription does, but the actual server doesn't self-destruct between October and March.
I would love to see how KO's numbers drop just to like straight after the grand final. Not even after the prelims, because they don't show the grand final live; they show it on delay. So I reckon as soon as those are done, see you later. Everyone just cuts it off. But no, I mean, the Wiz getting out of his kicking right at the right time. I loved all the hats in the crowd as well. All the hats, the crowd, and the fans are coming on board as well. Everyone's coming on board for this ride. And I think if they do manage to make it all the way to the end, to the grand final, I reckon that's going to be a pumping crowd and a very fun crowd. I think a lot of neutrals, regardless of history, regardless of anything, are going to jump right on board the Hawks bandwagon. Cashadia, D'Ambrosio, Meek looking good in the ruck. What's there not to like, Jesse? What's there not to like?
About Hawthorn? You'd be looking at one finger. Lloyd Meek has generated into a fine ruckman and a properly top 5 ruckman in the competition this season at that. He has been a gun, and it is fantastic to see. Cal Shadir, how good. I mean, the way he's reading the ball and reading the way he kicks coming inside that 50 is giving him every opportunity. It allows guys like Marbia Chol to have a slightly off night, yet still be impactful because they're drawing the attention anyway. It works. That forward line works. Defensively, they're good now, but geez, if they are ending up with Barras and Battle, I wasn't ready for Hawthorn to be good again, but this side's so fun, it's really conflicting. And I don't know what to do.
Well, I think we can only enjoy it while we can, or while we do, until they play us next year. At least for this year, Jesse, we can enjoy them. We can enjoy them when they become the top of the pops next year and don't lose a single game all year. We can start hating on them again. We can start hating on them again. Okay.
I've always hated Jack Ginnivan. I'm on the record saying that on this podcast. Liam, are we going to talk about the police incident at the game? Are we going to talk about that?
Well, do you know what, Jesse? This is the first time I've actually heard about it, I think. So please tell me about what happened.
Because multiple reports did come through after the game that Marcus Bontempelli was missing in action when his team needed him the most. Now, Liam, I cannot stress enough how poor this game was from Bontempelli for a player that's been pedestaled as the great of the modern game that he is. Where was he when his team needed him? Because he wasn't there. I don't know why Jack McRae was sitting at home watching Gogglebox, because I think he would have done more. I don't know what we really saw from Bontempelli, Liam on Friday. Can you enlighten me as to what that was?
There he is. That's all we needed to get out of you this whole time. There he is. He's back. He's back. I don't know. But it's look, you're a champion of the game, right? You're going to have off nights, but you don't want to have your off night in an elimination final. That's the one time where people are going to look at you and go like, well, what was that, Marcus? It's like, it's tough for the guy, I'm sure. But no, he was gone. He was not there. He was not the leader that they needed on that night.
What have I said about Bontempelli fairly consistently? And this is something I'll stand by. And Bulldogs fans are welcome to come and tell me why I'm wrong. But what's the one criticism always leveled at Bontempelli? He has his 5 or 6 games a year where he is unstoppable. And then outside of that, it's a raffle.
Well,
from very good to anonymous.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that ability to put that freakish Bontempelli level across a 22-game season, whereas a Patrick Cripps does, whereas a Nick Dacos does, albeit a very different player, whereas I would argue even a Christian Petrarca does. That's the difference for me between a Petrarca and a Cripps versus a Bontempelli.
I think both of us have had questions about the rave reviews around Bont this year. We've spoken about it a few times during the season as well, like myself included, like wondering where like all the praise is coming from. Sure, he's a champion of the game. Sure, he's got that name recognition and the value. But yeah, I don't think this season has been as good as everyone is making it out to be. So I look forward to him winning the Brownlow in a couple of weeks.
Well, this will be interesting. If it is hey, sorry, we gave it to Ollie Wines in 21. Whoops, here's yours, even though someone else probably deserves it more this year, which happens all the time in Brownlow medals for some reason. It's an absolute pet hate of mine that you have Brownlows awarded because, whoops, well, we should have given it this year, but we can't, so we'll give it to you this year, like Dane Swan in 2011, who was very good, but was dominant in 2010, and he really should have won it that year, but they gave it to him in 2011 because they felt bad.
Yeah. Interesting to see how it goes. I'm not huge on it doesn't matter, it's a whole different story. I was about to go on my Brownlow rant again, but I'm pretty sure I've been on that several times. It's in the archive.
We'll have a special Brownlow discussion at Close to the Medal. I'm sure we could both tell the AFL why they're wrong in that episode.
Yep, 100%. All right, anything else to really say about the Dogs in that one? Probably not. They're done now.
They played the one side that was going to upset their apple cart. I think they would have beaten Carlton. I don't think that's a question. And I think they would have given Brisbane a game. So had it just not worked out the way it did, I think they would have ended up in a semi-final against GWS. They happened to draw Hawthorn. Now, obviously, you have to beat what's in front of you in finals, but I do think they've potentially been robbed of going a week deeper into September just with the draw. I think they are the second best of that bottom 4. They just happen to run into the side that I personally think is the best.
Fair shout, and I cannot help but agree. Let's move on to the closest game of the finals and the game of the...
this was a great game of footy. Now I'm happy again.
Now you're happy again. Here we go. We just have to get to this game. Sydney 13-10-88, defeating the GWS Giants 12-10-82. Now, I will let you begin with this one, Jesse, because I've been speaking first in the other games. I'd like to get your thoughts on this one. What are your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
My thoughts are, I love football. And my second thought is, this can be a grand final game with them having played in the qualifying final.
Yep.
Do I think that will happen? Not necessarily. Would I be completely fine with it? Oh, yeah, I would be. That was awesome. Give me that again. Don't know about it being in Victoria, but whatever. Just chuck it on. I don't care. What a great game of footy. It had everything, didn't it? It had the angst, it had the antagonisers, it had an incredible defensive performance by Sam Taylor, which will be lost in the result, but G. Taylor was good across that game. It had Isaac Heaney with one of the most heroic, almost an anti-Bontempelli performance in that game. Just even when things weren't happening, before we even talk about the damn mark, he was unbelievable.
Okay, well, let's quickly do that because I think we need to, because it's a good segue into it. Why is it that the mark of the year finishes at the end of the season? Because, it's not like the mark or the goal of the year. I'll chuck the goal of the year into this as well. Why not? It's not like either of those two are affected by anything. Oh, is it sad? Is it sad that because the other teams don't get a chance to win mark of the year? No one gives a shit. Make mark of the year go all the way to the grand final, because when you have marks like this, which might I say, Jesse, I'm going to get close to the camera for this one. Might I say, might be the best mark I've ever seen.
I don't think it does. I don't think it dusts off Moorcroft, but I think it's right up there.
See, Moorcroft's had the thing where he got the air and then landed on his back, right? Okay, granted, if Heaney had landed smack on his head, it would have been the best. Yeah, he's very lucky because was it Bedford? Buckley got his hand and twisted him around, which was very, very fortuitous. Because if it wasn't for him there and having that forethought and that front of mind, he was heading straight for the top of his noggin, and then he wouldn't have had the ability to finish out the game like he did, like an absolute gun, like an absolute jet. 6 goals to 2 in the final quarter. It looked done for all money. Not done for all money. That's probably the wrong way of saying it.
It looked 85% the Giants' game going into three-quarter time, I felt.
They looked in charge. They looked like they had everything under control. They were playing a good style of footy. Everything seemed fine. Hogan was firing up. Green was firing up. Peeling was having a good game. And then, Heaney just went, not today, boys. And this is with an Errol Goulden who was mostly missing. He was had a very, very quiet game. And Heaney just went, absolutely not. Not today, everybody. This is our game. And I've not seen a comeback. I've got a friend who's a Swan supporter. You know him very well. And he had to go back and watch the game again. I said, why are you watching it again? It just finished. He had to admit that he turned it off because he thought they were going to lose. He couldn't bear to watch it. And he didn't want to be miserable for the rest of the day. And then this happened. Like this is what footy's all about, though. This is what
we should not be miserable anyway.
Well, I
thought you'd be miserable. I thought I'd be miserable regardless.
What with the result, or just with the fact of?
Well, actually, that would imply that Fremantle could make finals in the first instance. But I think I would be miserable with the result, even if I watched it. Even if I didn't watch it, I would watch it, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I'd still be miserable if I turned it off. Like 100 points, I may as well just watch it for the comedy at that point.
Well, that's right. Once it gets to that point, yeah, you may as well. But no, it was great to have a game like this, and a game that actually had some sort of semblance of being a final, because as we'll talk about in a second, the fourth game sure as shit didn't deliver on that either. But it was great. Any other standouts for you from this match, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm going to say one that I don't think anyone else is going to talk about in terms of a player that I think actually had a good game. And this is when we have to give me a bit of latitude and ignore the statistical output.
Okay.
I thought Joel Amarty's game was actually very good, because easily after that first half, he could have dropped his head and been anonymous for the whole game. Mm-hmm. But in that third quarter, the amount of pressure acts, tackles, and involvement in the plays he was having at the other end of the ground to get himself in the game, that's the marking of a footballer that you want to have in your team. Not someone that's going to sulk it full forward because they're not getting things their own way. And what did Amarty get in the end? He got his reward because he kept himself busy and he kept himself in the game. He got the reward, and ultimately his side got the win. So I wanted to highlight that specifically, that I thought that was a really good individual mindset from Amarty to keep himself engaged, keep himself in the game. And that's got to come down to the experience of this Sydney side, both coaching staff and playing group.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that as well, because so often we focus on these, disposals and hardball gets and all these, like the percentages and stuff like that. A lot of the time, these players are just, they're left to left their own devices and no one really talks about them. Like, I feel like Swid is one of those for us. Like, the amount of stuff he does without actually touching the ball is insane. Yeah. But at the end of the game, he ain't going to be All-Australian. He ain't going to be winning Brownlows because, what he does doesn't quantify a statistic. But but it's so vital. It's so vital for the game. And, like you said, he got the winning goal. He kicked the winning goal, which always gets him an interview after the game. So a bit more screen time for Joel. Thank you very much. I'm sure he'd be stoked about that. Anything else for this one, Jesse, before we move on to the last game, which I'm sure we won't have to spend much time on?
I mean, I did say during Just the Tips that these games should have been reversed. Was that Jesse's right point number 173 for the podcast?
174.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, you give me a point for Bontempelli as well, because it's like an overarching point that is not that good. Okay, great, thanks.
That's right. I've been telling them up across the year, so I think you've got a few from that, but that's fun.
It's like a Spotify Wrapped that I get at the end of the year. Also, if we are your number one Spotify Wrapped podcast, I'm so sorry, but make sure you let us know, because that'd be very funny.
Yeah, not yet. Well, look, this is where I want to be, Jesse. Number one sports AFL podcast in around the areas, around the traps.
In a Metro Perth area.
In the Metro Perth area. Within wherever, about to dox myself.
Can we move back chat somewhere else, please? Is that allowed?
Back chat? What do you mean back chat?
That's What's another AFL podcast.
Oh, okay.
I think we might have to move them away. Yeah. But you know what? Open to negotiation.
That's fine. We can do that.
You can find us at CM Perfect AFL if you want to chat more about that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've delayed, I've distracted, I've ignored it long enough, but now we have to talk about it. Liam, I thought Thursday night was rubbish. Oh, Doctor, wasn't Saturday night bad? What happened? Tell our lovely listeners and viewers.
Oh, Brisbane 14-15-99, defeating Carlton 11-5-71 in what is bound to be known as the most kind scoreline for Carlton that's going to happen this year. This game was over in the first quarter. The final score is meaningless. It doesn't matter that Carlton kicked 6-2 in the final quarter, or 6-3, whatever it was. Doesn't matter.
Don't tell the commentary team that. They were very excited.
Do you know what, though? Do you know what? I'll give them a pass because they had to do something to make the game exciting. When it's 60-0 in an elimination final.
That's exciting. That was unprecedented in VFL AFL finals history. They were 6 minutes away from making a new statistical category all to themselves. Only team to be scoreless at halftime in a final.
Yeah, who was the last? Who was the last team?
Which feels like that should be a St Kilda stat, but it could have been a Carlton stat.
Well, who was the last team to go scoreless at quarter time in a final? Do you remember? Do you know?
It was in 74. I remember that, but the team escapes me.
It was the Kangas. The Kangas in 74, last team to go scoreless in a first quarter.
That was good back then too. They won the flag the next year.
Happens to the best of us, Jesse. Sometimes you just have an off day. You just never want the off day to be at the Gabba on a Saturday night. But look, much like the Cats destroyed the Eagles in the last round of the season, being 100 points up at halftime, it kind of had the feeling of Brisbane being like, okay, we've done enough already. we're just gonna chill. We're gonna coast.
No injuries, please.
Exactly right. And sure, Carlton kicked the last two of the first half, first three of the third quarter. Sure, got it back within 5 goals. Well done. It was never going to be challenged. They weren't very good. I had some hope. That a few of the names coming back in, but then a lot of the names they brought back in were rushed. And if you've got your coach making their tactical sub halfway through the second quarter, it's going really well. It's going really well. And also, question.
But you know what? I'm just going to say something.
Okay.
I think Carlton are in good hands with Michael Voss.
Oh, me too.
That did take guts.
Yeah, me too.
That took guts. And I respect a coach that's willing to say, I've gotten this wrong, and actually make the change. Rather than be smug and sit in the box and then make a substitution halfway through the fourth quarter when the game's over already, Justin. Sorry, where were you?
We'll get to that. I don't know anymore. You've reset my brain. What was I going to say? But no, I agree. I think they're in good hands with Voss. I think they got hit with a plague of injuries at the worst time of the season. Could they have potentially done a lot more if they had a lot of their key players? Probably. But unfortunately, that's the way the cookie does crumble sometimes with football and sport in general. Bad timing, bad everything. It is what it is. Who was good? Who was good? I don't really know.
Cripps was good. Cripps was good.
Okay, who was good that wasn't a surprise? Yeah.
Can we move on to the season review?
We can.
Unless we talk about Brisbane players that were good, because I can talk about a few of those. But
let's do that.
I will say something. It was great to see Sam Doherty back, and that made me happy that he got a goal.
It was.
That was
nice.
Good to see him
back. That was nice.
Please.
All right, Sabrina,
fix that forward line.
Yes,
because that was awful.
Well, I mean, again, like that's the thing about Carlton, though. I think it's what they've lost. They lose a few pieces, and like they didn't have anything to plug it up with, and they don't have anyone to plug it up with, and they don't have an answer, and that was very obvious. It has been obvious for the last 4 or 5 rounds and first final.
Harry Mackay winning a Coleman medal is looking weirder and weirder by the week.
He was bad. Like, I know he got 3 goals in the end, but that first quarter where he was having set shots for goal and kicking goals and just everything was going out of bounds in the full, just everything. It was very bizarre to see. Not too sure if he had a bit of the finals, the finals, heebie-jeebies. But yeah. When did he win it? Last year? Last year, didn't he?
22.
Feels like last year. My God. Okay, for Brisbane, who was good?
The usual suspects. Neil was good. I think Danaher had a very Danaher game. Charlie Cameron was uncontainable for the most part. I felt that McInerney had a solid game as well. I think he is really valuable to the way Brisbane set up. And defensively, I mean, Harris Andrews, we know how good he is. That's nothing new there. He was excellent. The Stars, I think, shone. I still think they've got some bits to work on. I don't really know. I'm not sold on Rayner still. I'm still. I know he was All-Australian 40-man squad, which is still really odd to me. But I don't know where he's actually fitting in.
Rayner's a bitzer kind of player. Like when he fires, he's really exciting and everyone gets aboard and everyone knows who Cam Rayner is. And when he's not having a good game, no one really gives a hoot. He's just kind of just in the background. You know what I mean? Like he has to have a really good game for people to notice who he is. And obviously he must have had a fair few good games this year because he was in the squad. But yeah, no, I think he's who he is. Yeah. Shall we move on, Jesse? That's the games. So now we move into our reviews of the. Go on. I said it poorly. How should I say it, Jesse?
This is our 2024 season reviews. We did the Battlers last week. We're now doing the Fallen Stars because most of these teams could have been something this year. Instead, they're not playing finals, which is very sad for their fan bases. And if you're a certain fan base, it's kind of to be expected. Talking about you Gold Coast because you never make finals. Definitely not about Fremantle. Should we start with 14th and work our way up?
We shall, Jesse, start with 14th, which I believe was the Melbourne Demons. Now,
yes.
I've done my best. I've got the retirements, got the delisters, I've got the leavings here. I'll go through them in a second. Some teams don't have stuff out yet. Some teams have some. And I'm going to put the leaving and I'm going to put the question marks in there as well because obviously we don't know who's going where as of yet. So retirements, you've got Angus Brayshaw, you've got Ben Brown. And the delistings, you've got Kaya Farris-White and Josh Hackey, who didn't quite get his groove going at the Ds at all.
Number 2 draft pick, by the way.
I know. Ain't that a thing? Sometimes it doesn't work out. Leaving potentials, you've got Alex Neil-Bullen, and then 2, maybe not so much anymore, but Cozzy Pickett and Petrarca. I've chucked on here in case it does happen. Anyone else that is on the potential outs at the Ds, Jesse?
Look, not that I've heard, but Melbourne, I think, will need to start having a big think about how they want to place themselves season 2025.
I agree. Now,
should we start with the good?
You can start with the good, Jesse. You can go for it. I have a sweet.
Alex Neil-Bullen had a great year. Should we go to the bad? Alex Neil-Bullen wants to be traded. Look, in all seriousness, I actually think Melbourne started the season okay. They were okay at the start of the year. And then a combination of media pressure, a combination of off-field distractions, and then, of course, Christian Petrarca's entire internal organ system detonating in the middle of the MCG and then being allowed back on the field really did just throw this season off. Now, some people may be willing to give Melbourne a bit of a pass, call it a gas leak here, see where they go for season 2025. I'm not so sure I'm in that camp, though, because Melbourne played some rubbish football this year. They were horrific in Alice Springs. They were consistently bad at home to the point where they actually looked better away for a lot of the season as well. I don't know if this Melbourne team is united. There's now off-field turmoil. Brad Green's come in for Kate Roffey as president, so there's changes there as well. I think they may be good changes, but in terms of stability and organisation, is Simon Goodwin going to survive this elite review that's coming? That's a big question mark. I don't know where Melbourne are, and my only fear for them is that this could be the canary in the coal mine for the next few seasons.
So do you have a grading out of 10 to give them for this year, Jesse?
I do. I'm giving them a 2.
Okay. I also gave them a 2. Now, and I took some feedback on board last week, Jesse, when you said, because I think you gave one of the other teams who finished higher a really low score, like a 1. I can't remember which team it was.
I gave Adelaide a 1 because they were
right.
they were a monumental flop to me.
So if you take the full package of Melbourne, including the obviously games won and lost, how they played, off-field drama, people wanting to leave, CEOs and club presidents leaving, potentially coaches leaving, talk of turmoil, not making finals, falling off the cliff. Put that all together, and you have yourself a 2 out of 10 season. And some might argue that might be generous, but the games that they did win, there were some games they won that looked really, really competitive and really good. So that's going to bump them up just a smidge for me. But in a nutshell, yeah, it's been a horrid season. I'm sure a lot of D's fans will be very happy to see the back of it. But like you said, man, like who knows where it's going to go next year if they don't make some wholesale changes. Sounds like they've started already, but it's going to be a little bit of time before the D's see anything good on the horizon, I would say. That said, we said that about the Geelong this year. So who bloody knows? Who knows? Jesse, what's your word? What's your 2025 word for Melbourne?
I thought I had 3 words, not... Oh, no, it's one word, isn't it? It's one word we're doing. In my head, it was 3. One word, terrified. For them, not of them.
No.
Hawthorne may get the same word. It'll just be a completely reframed context.
100%. My word was scary. So, same, but different. It's going to be a formative year, I think, for the Demons. Either they're going to kind of just steady the ship in the level of mediocrity they're currently in, or they're going to fall
the SS Essendon.
The SS Essendon. Well done. It rolls off the tongue as well. Shall we move on to the next team, Jesse?
I think we should, because they're so weird.
I'll need like 3 or 4 minutes to just get through the delistings. Gold Coast this year finished up in what position?
13th.
Thank you.
Retirement. That's not very good.
That's not very good at all. Retiring is Brandon Ellis. Now, delistings. Tell me if you've heard any of these names. A few of them I've heard of. Sandy Brock, Sam Day, Oscar Forkhead, Darcy McPherson, Jack Marnie, Will Rowlands, and James Stitas. Heard of the last one. Heard of Sam Day. Any surprises in there, man?
No, I don't think so. It's a case of Gold Coast really needs to start getting serious about where they want to be as a football club, because we're not far off Team 19 now. With Team 19, it's probably going to be Team 20. The other option for Team 19 is to go to Team 18, and you haven't been in finals in a decade and a half. That's a problem. You're a notoriously tough market for clubs to survive. That's a problem. You've got a really good coach, but some fairly average players in the best 22. That's also a problem.
Well,
you're in a good growth area, though. So that's
also
nice.
Compounding that, though, is potential leaving of Jack Lukosius and also potentially Mac Andrew, who is fielding offers, it sounds like, from other teams and other clubs who are desperate to have his attention and affection. Sorry to cut you off, but
you couldn't blame either player.
Hell no.
To leave.
If you're the best player or one of the best players in a team that has no real outlook for success, then absolutely go chase it. Why not? It's a sport. It's a business. I know we get caught up with people being like, people get really emotional about people playing for other teams, leaving to go play for other people, but it's our sport. It's our business. If you're going to make money and be successful elsewhere, you do it. Hell, we do it in our own lives. If we don't like a job, we go look for another one. What's the difference? Anyway.
We don't come back to purple hat at half time in our jobs, though, Liam.
Purple hat, shoot a grand dancing. All right, so Gold Coast Suns, obviously at home, were unstoppable, unbeatable for most of the season. Away from home, they looked utterly hopeless. And Auskick. Well, that's being rude to Auskickers, to be honest with you. And then at the end of the season, they just kind of reversed that for some reason, just for the last 4 games. Yeah, fuck it. Let's switch it around.
Yes, the game was really funny, wasn't it?
Oh, Mac Andrew just putting a few extra zeros on his contract after the end of that game for sure. No, that was that the first win away from home? That was the one, wasn't it? That was the one that broke the camel's back. Hilarious. Oh, Essendon. We'll talk about you in a second. What's to say about the Suns, Jesse?
my criticism to the Sun is there's a lot of individuals in that team, and I feel like it's just not working yet. That's not a criticism of Hardwick. It's not even necessarily a criticism of the players, but I don't get the sense this team is gelling. You look at guys like Flanders, look at Anderson, look at Rao. They're all very different players in midfield, and that's not an issue. You know, the best midfields have that. Look at Judd, Cousins, Kerr at West Coast. But those three gelled. I don't get the sense that's really happening here at Gold Coast. They've seemed to rotate players in and out of positions randomly, and that's been going on for years. I mean, Fiorini was a gun-on baller in 19, now is sometimes a forward pocket and sometimes in the VFL. Like, there's just no rhyme or reason to me in terms of what the Gold Coast are actually planning ahead. That maybe I'm just blind to it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not paying them enough attention. But the latter positions don't lie historically. They struggle.
Yeah, they do struggle. And this is the year that, you know, I tipped them to do some good things. And it was not to be. It was not to be. But again, I think it's like that with the Suns. Like you say, you might have a blind eye to it. But I think that's kind of just how the Suns are. Like on a week-by-week basis, you watch the games, we talk about their games, and then we kind of just forget about it because it's the Suns.
It'd be great to see them as a thriving top four side, though. As a club, list aside, we need that for the strength of the competition. We need everyone having that crack at the top. They've got the right coach for it, but do they have the right list?
Well, I mean, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the start of them kind of clearing out shop to start again and form it in the mold of the Hardwick. We will see. We will see. What'd you give them, Jesse? How'd you rate the year?
I gave them a 4, and that's because at the start of the season, I wouldn't have had them necessarily winning 11 games. So I had to give them some leverage for that. But on the other hand, I can't really give a team a pass mark if they turn into paper mache when they have to step foot at Coolangatta Airport, which I've been to. The airport's fine. I don't know what your problem with it is.
Me personally, never been there, so I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. What's good about the Coolangatta Airport, Jesse? Does that give you an extra half mark for the Gold Coast Suns?
It might. I liked it, actually. It was functional. I went and got off the plane, and I got my baggage straight away. It was great. Loved it. Do I love it being about 45 minutes away from the CBD of Gold Coast? Not massively, but it was a nice drive. So, you know, it could have been worse. This is not the airport review podcast, although the off-season can get really boring sometimes. So maybe I'll have to review the Leonora Airport as well.
Look, 4 out of 10 for me as well, because like you said, we started talking about airports, Jesse. So, I mean, that pretty much says everything.
Does that not say it all about the Gold Coast Football Club? I'm more interested in architecture and functionality of baggage handling.
The fact your bags arrived, you're like, thank you. Thank you very much. 4 out of 10 Gold Coast. Yeah, look, it's hard to give them anything more than that. It was yeah. I mean, you said it all. You said it all. And we said it all when we started talking about Coolangatta. So we can move on to before I do, Jesse. One word for Gold Coast for 2025.
Worried.
My word is indifferent. Let's move on to the next. Let's move to the next game. No, it's not true. I want to say that is what
Can
I
change mode to aviation?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Just think about the airport more.
Well, that would have been really good if Essendon was next, but they're not. So we can't segue it in.
Getting in the way.
Ruining everything. St Kilda is next on the list. Retirements, none listed so far. Delistings, Matthew Ellison, Riley Bonner, Tom Campbell, Seb Ross, and James Van S. Maybe leavings, Josh Battle. Anyone else on that list of maybes, Jesse?
Not that I can think of.
No, me either. And I did a little bit of research to try and find some names that were popping up. And Josh Battle was the only one I could see that was worth mentioning. Okay, so St Kilda is a team that you're famously quite hard on. So what say you about the St Kilda Saints?
Let's start with the good. Yeah. And there is a little bit of good here. Rowan Marshall had another fantastic season, although he was then being linked with potential moves away. I don't think that's very serious, but gee, that'd be a huge blow. Wilkie was awesome. Deserved an All-Australian squad nomination. Didn't get one. That was really stupid. I think Philippou, very good player. I think Tim Memory had a good season after being in and out of the squad, and I think they've got the right coach.
Okay.
I have some bad.
Sure.
But
it is you after all, Jesse. You need some bad.
That's true.
You got to balance it out.
Okay. Max King. That's fairly obvious. Actually, you know what? I'll throw another good in. They rebuilt Plan B and actually made Plan B their best football. That's good. That's a win for any club. You go.
Well, on that, I was going to say, and I'm not too sure if you're about to launch into a Max King kind of tirade.
I am.
Well, then, do you know what? I will let you go, and then we'll talk about what I was going to say afterwards.
We have flirted with the idea on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast that Max King and St Kilda go together like dynamite and a building. It's not a good combination unless that's specifically what you want to be doing. So, with that being said, does St Kilda seek to remove the dynamite from their lobby and potentially find a nice Andy Brayshaw-shaped couch to put in there instead? Or do they persist? I know, but we're trying to be fair to all teams here, Liam. I don't know if you've vomited the thought that Brayshaw's a couch instead of like a coffee shop, or just the fact he's leaving.
No,
anyway,
just the thought of that makes me ill.
I think we have proven now beyond reasonable doubt that Max King and St Kilda need to go separate ways. If St Kilda want to be serious about using this list, and I think this list can make finals in season 2025, but that's with the caveat that Max King's not a part of that list. I think Max King actively drags down the style that this team wants to play, and that Butler and Higgins specifically look demonstrably worse with King on the field because they have to play a role that just doesn't suit them.
Well, this is the thing, right? And this is why I've given him a 5 out of 10 this year. What about you?
Yep, 5.
5 as well. We're on track this year, and I think the reason for that is that it's as high as 5 is because the end of the tail end of the season was very good, and the reason the tail end of that season was very good is because, like you said, they worked out how to play, and it didn't involve Max King. Having Max King there is almost like, you know, this deterrent. They always have to kick them. It's like in his contract. You must kick it to Max at least 25 times, 30 times a game. Otherwise, he gets a very, very sad boy. It always seems like that's their one funnel. And they've obviously got many other channels that they can take to get to goal because they upset a lot of people's finals chances this year, or tried to at least. And they did it all without Max King. So
for me, their most important player for season 2025 also didn't play much this year, and that's Liam Henry. Now, Liam Henry's gone under the knife twice in the last month to fix issues. What we saw from him as an on-baller was not something I thought we'd see, and that was actually a pretty handy midfielder specifically. I thought Liam's great on the wing, chuck him there, he'll be fine. But he looked quality on that inside for St Kilda at times, and I think that's an option for Ross. I think him, Philippou, Marshall, you can build around that for a midfield. Yeah. You can make that happen. The problem is now, though, how do you make St Kilda a place where people want to go?
Well, winning is a good start. Like having a culture that's winning and positive. It seems to be. I do wonder how much of the conversation across the off season is going to be around culture. I know it's been kind of in the zeitgeist for a few years now. Everyone talks about the culture of the teams and who's got the best culture, and you can kind of start to see which teams have that. You can see that Geelong's got a pretty good culture. You can see the Hawks got a pretty good culture, and then from there, it's kind of like, well, you know, where do teams sit, and how important is that for players? Because players still got to play. They can't all go to Geelong and Hawthorn as much as they might like to, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of works out. But that's one way that St Kilda can entice people.
Wouldn't Box Hill be strong if everyone wanted to play for Hawthorn?
Yeah, that's right. They'd be VFL champions every year, hands down.
Running out now for Box Hill, Jai Amos as the medical sub because he couldn't get a game.
Oh, he did it again. Oh, I can't picture that either. Don't do it to me, Jesse. St Kilda's 2025 in one word.
Revolution, because they need to overthrow the king.
Ooh, very good. Very good. I had a hyphenated word. I said clean slate, kind of referring to that.
That's one word.
That's one word. Yes. Yeah, because they need to do it. They got to do it because.
But I also don't think you can use the hyphen for clean. Whatever. One word analysis is a clean slate. Move on. Who was next, Liam?
Paul. All right. Next we have Essendon. Retired. Retirements: Dyson Heppel, Jake Kelly. Delistings: Kane Baldwin, Nick Hind, Jaden Hunter, and Tex Wanganeen. and the maybe gone's Jake Stringer, who's been thrown around the ringer when it comes to talks of trades. Not sure he's too keen on that, but it sounds like that's what's happening. Another year, another final not won for the Bombers. I'm sure their fans will be really stoked with that, considering that for the majority of the year they spent up in the echelons of the ladder before they quickly and promptly dived into the Hudson, and they didn't have old mate. God damn it. What's his name?
Sullenberger.
Sully taking
I promise this is not an aviation podcast. I really do.
Do you know what? This is the problem, Jesse. I thought I had like a really good thing going with that, and then I completely forgot the name of the pilot. So thank goodness you're here. Thank God you're here. I wouldn't be very good otherwise. Another what-if team this year. A massive what-if team this year, because I think a lot of their fans would have been quite buoyant coming to the bye, and then kind of started the bye, and then it all started to go by the bye, and then all of a sudden it's done. And they finish in 11th spot, which I think for a lot of fans of the Essendon Bombers would be a massive, massive disappointment and a massive failure. That said, they did spend most of the year up top of the table. So obviously a close season, trademark. But you still got to win to get up there and stay up there. So what are your thoughts on the Essendon Bombers this year, Jesse?
Zach Merritt had 16 rounds of Brownlow form and then 8 rounds of fine form. Mm-hmm. His form was fine. I was surprised that Nick Hine delisting. Mm-hmm. Personally, I thought he still had a bit to offer there. Essendon's biggest problem is that these high draft pitches aren't playing out as high draft picks. And I know it's unfair to attack the tag of, right, you're a pick 6, so you have to be this good. I don't like doing that.
Sure.
But the problem with Essendon specifically, and also even St Kilda to an extent from before, is that when you consistently rebuild through the draft, which a club like Essendon probably shouldn't need to, but when a club rebuilds through the draft, they have to get it right. And you have to, if you're going to commit to it, you've got to get it right. I don't think Essendon have. Nick Cox isn't quite working. Archie Perkins isn't quite working. Tsatas, well, who knows where he's at realistically? I get the sense that Essendon have a couple of really big positives, but potentially still overachieved this year, despite the way they crashed through at the back half of the season.
Fair shout. What was your rating? What did you give them, Jesse?
I gave them a 5. And I undernard and I thought, well, I had them finishing lower, so I've got to give them that. But then I can't really give a team higher than a bare minimum pass for the way they bottled the end of the season. So, I'll stick with 5. I think five's fair enough. Liam, where did you have them?
Honestly, Jesse, we're on the same track again, man. Our contras aligned. 5 out of 10 for myself as well. Interesting to see how we go with the next team, but that's where I finished Essendon this year. 5 out of 10, middling. Again, just disappointing, isn't it? Just disappointing. What about the word for next year?
I actually had real trouble with this one for Essendon because I don't really know what I think of them. So I kind of nutted it out. The word I've come up with Essendon for season 2025 is desperate.
Oh my
the fan
God.
base desperately needs some success.
What is up with us tonight, Jesse? The word I've got is
What's
desperation.
Your word?
Desperation.
Well, there you go.
Like, what's
we
going on?
haven't actually planned this either. This isn't like scripted.
No, I'm stunned because again, we'll see what happens next. But all of our scores been the same. Our words been similar, if not bang on. Unbelievable. Don't you love to see it? Don't you love to see it? But we will move on to our dear Dockers, Fremantle. Retirement's currently NA, delistings currently NA. Our maybe gones, Sam Switkowski, Nathan O'Driscoll, maybe. Anyone else you've heard on the...
I'll crack it. You would be prepared for an hour and a half of me shouting on this damn podcast if Noddy goes.
Oh no, we're going to do a special.
Not tolerate that.
We'll do a special breakaway special breakaway episode as to why just Jesse raging for an hour and a half. I won't even be here. I'm just going to put this camera on, or his camera on. He's going to go, and then we'll release it for you guys to all hear his absolute rage at losing O'Driscoll. Hopefully we don't. Hopefully we keep him on.
It'll be banned in 43 countries.
Huge in Belize though. Very strange. All right, so
okay, let's talk good.
Okay, let's talk good. Let's talk
Jesse.
Good. Jesse, let's talk good.
Because there was serious progression across a number of players. not even going with probably the biggest individual leaper, but Caleb Sarong went from a star player to a absolute gun amongst his midfield peers, consistently churned out results. Josh Tracy, well, I've been quite transparent. I didn't see this coming in a
No.
million and 1 years. He was unbelievable in season 2024. He turned it around to a point I didn't think was possible. I think huge improvements from Wagner, Walker, Johnson. These guys improved, and it helped build a bit of a core. Got to see O'Driscoll back. He looked really good in the 5 quarters of footy he played, and I think that's exciting. Noddy in the guts, please and thank you. And of course, statistically the best player in the world ever, or whatever they went with, Hayden Young. That midfield move worked.
It did. Yep.
Now
Draper?
we'll talk about and some All Australians too. Yep, Draper, excellent. Ryan, stellar season. Geordie Clark in the squad, he was a big improver as well. There was plenty of improvement list-wise, I think, for Fremantle in 2024, which is exciting in many ways.
It is.
There was also some serious regressions in that list in season 2024. Sean Darcy, Brennan Cox, Nat Fyfe. Now, 2 of those have injury caveats, so I'm prepared to set them aside to an extent. Do you think, Liam, that Nat Fyfe's form on balance justified an entire season of immovable selection in Fremantle's best 23?
No, and I think we've made this pretty clear across the year as well. Like, and myself included, like, have been pretty staunch on the idea that Fyfe isn't that guy anymore. He isn't him. Like, plenty of times, he had like maybe like 3 or 4 games where it was just like, there he is, knock on the door. There's no 2. There we go. So 2 games. This is probably my biggest thing with the Dockers. And when I did my little poll, my end of year poll as a member, I made it very, very clear as to this is my main concern about where the Freo Dockers are heading, and that's the inability to make tough decisions around selections and tough decisions around, around strategy and coaching. It's very and Fyfe is probably the key of all that. And you mentioned it across the year as well. Like, we have players in the wings who can come in and at least get, if they're not there yet, go out and get some seasoning, can't they? And get a little bit of salt on there,
garnish,
and come out exactly right. A bit of garnish, come out there next year and kill it, which is where we need to be right now. That's where we should be at and should be focusing on. We got a very young team, one of the youngest in the competition. We're a very inexperienced team, one of the most inexperienced in the competition. To be talking about all these exciting players who have come leaps and bounds is exciting. It's very cool. Part of the reason why I think you might have had them so far down the list in terms of your preseason predictions is because of those 2 factors. Young team.
Well, I didn't have 55 goals coming from Tracy, and that changed a significant amount of movement in that ladder position.
But just that's one guy. There's all the other stuff.
And look how important he was.
Yeah, I mean,
he went off with Fremantle and leading Essendon. They barely led again in the whole season.
Yeah, that's actually very true. That's very true. Good point. Well made. I actually think Luke Jackson was a bit quiet this season too. I think he'll be okay. He's still a very young fella as well. We have to remember he's only just turned 21, 22. So this is the thing about Freo that I'm excited for. Was making the finals a disappointment? Sure. Was it to be expected? Probably also sure. It's that the stuff that we complained about throughout the year, which is the strategy. It was all very one-dimensional. It was all very no plan B, And you even did a quick ad hoc little graph on one thing, like you're a sports coach for Little League. You pulled out your phone, you started drawing circles on it because the cut off the corridor were done. I never saw it. You see that, and as soon as you said that, I was like, oh shit, you're right. That's exactly how it is. That's our biggest thing this year, I think. Our biggest thing was the fact that once we were found out, and I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the next few years. I think we've got a really good young list. See who we bring in. See who what kind of additions we get to the crew. But I reckon there's just one. I didn't see it at the start of the season. I was always a bit of, I was always like, oh, don't be so hard on him, Jesse. But maybe I'm starting to see why I think we might need a new coach.
So, I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room because he is out of contract at the end of next season. Mm-hmm. It was extended
Yeah.
against what I felt was the right decision based off past performance. It was probably to give some stability to the team. Did that work? I think you could argue both ways.
Sure.
Fremantle started well. They finished horribly, but interlinked with all that was an inability to do anything outside of my way or the highway. And that worries me. And we'll talk about our ratings in a second. But if you want to talk about a list, Fremantle had a 7 out of 10 season.
Mm.
But if you want to talk about tactically and technically, I think Fremantle had a 3 out of 10 season. Because, simply put, the amount of games that were thrown away, the amount of poor tactical decisions that were made, or not made, I mean, not to bang on again, but Fife playing when he could barely break out more than a jog, while Aish is running around some bog in West Perth in the waffle. I'm sorry, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Like, there's no possible way on form you could equivocate that being the decision. No way.
Mm.
It's absurd, desperate decision making from a desperate man who's clinging onto his job. I don't see a world where Justin Longmuir can turn out another non-final season in 2025 and keep his job. I just don't see how that would be acceptable.
No, it wouldn't be. No, I think if it's not next year, it's never for him. And I would make the case that potentially he doesn't have the. He seems like a nice guy, but he doesn't have that.
He seems like a lovely man,
yeah.
But I don't think he has it in him to be a senior coach, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Plenty of good coaches have found their careers as assistants. Maybe that's what he needs to be.
Yeah, he doesn't have that fire, that that get up and go. It seems to be all very almost too professional. Like, I'm all good having a professional coach, but it seems like it's too rigid, too structured. Like, if you look at Hawthorn, I guarantee that their game plan is not rigid. It's not structured. Well, it might be structured, but it's not rigid. You know what I mean? There's room to move. There's room to adjust. It's flexible. I don't feel that with Freo, but we'll leave it there because obviously we'll keep going otherwise. You gave a couple of scores, Jesse. Where'd you balance out on Freo's year?
A 5, because I did have them bottom 4. They're not in that, but you also can't have them as significant improvers when they blew a golden opportunity for a top 2 finish in a home final to then be already in Bali.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually might be a little bit generous, but I think we have to differ on at least one tonight. So I pushed up to a 6. And in a vacuum, the only reason I did that was based on what I was saying before in terms of the young, inexperienced list. Potentially, while we did miss the finals, potentially actually overachieved based on what we probably should have been doing. That's harder to look at in hindsight when you've got Hawthorn doing what they're doing. But looking at our team in a vacuum, I think there's a lot of positives, a lot of good stuff in hindsight to Melbourne, for example, which there isn't that. This year had a lot of positives coming out of it. So that's why I pushed up to a 6. But we'll move on to our last team. No. Nearly did it again. Jesse, your word for Freo's 2025.
Decision.
Mm-hmm.
The club has to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My word was finals. Because hand in hand, that's where it's going to be.
Finals or bust.
Finals or bust. Finals or bust. Let's move on to the reigning premiers, Collingwood, who finished in 10th spot. Retiring is Josh Carmichael and Nathan Murphy.
No, they didn't.
9th spot. Did I say 9th? Did I say 10th?
Yeah. You said 10th.
I said 10th. I had a bit of a moment, didn't I? 9th spot. Collingwood and delisted Aiden Begg. Any maybes from Collingwood on the outs? I haven't heard of anyone.
Not really.
No. Collingwood seems to be a team that people want to play for at the moment, though. Speaking of culture, they definitely seem to be up there in terms of that. Jesse, thoughts on the Pies 2024?
They blew it with a poor start, and then the injury crisis hit. It just didn't go to plan for Collingwood. And look, we've seen teams have premiership hangovers and said, haha, that's really funny. And I'm sure people did enjoy laughing at Collingwood's expense this season, but I still feared Collingwood throughout the majority of the season. Even when they're not making finals, I still wouldn't have wanted to have played them late in the season, as Carlton found out. They're not a fun side to play against. Now, obviously, when you look at snakes and ladders, they've taken the mother of all snakes down the table to be off the board in reality, but I think they'll be all right. I'm still going to score them quite lowly for season 2024 in a vacuum, but but I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say they wouldn't be, to be honest with you, because again, another team that was quite hampered by a lot of injuries. We say that a lot, but realistically, when you got a reigning premiership team who didn't really have many changes in the offseason either, obviously they brought Schultz in. I don't think anyone went out. Like they just kind of had like it was quite
Jamie
regular.
Elliott.
Jamie Elliott.
Sorry, Taylor Adams. Sorry, apologies.
Taylor Adams. I was like, Jamie Elliott.
No, sorry, apologies. Don't know why I got those two mixed up.
That's coming. That's coming off the Jesse's correct count. It's down to 173 again.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm giving myself one back for Lomiel not making finals. 174.
Okay, fair enough.
Although I think you could have picked that.
Probably. No, like a lot of players didn't step up this year. Darcy Moore had a pretty poor one this year for his standards. And you're right. Like you play Collingwood, you're like you tip them, right? Because at the end of the day, it's Collingwood, and the aura they've built across the last few years is they're going to win, right? No matter who's playing, no matter who's on the pitch.
We also completely forgot one player that went out from last year as well, which is quite funny. No idea how we forgot Ginnivan.
Oh yeah. Because you know why we forgot about him? Because he just feels so right at the Hawks. So that's why I completely forgot about him. Because who even knew he played for? He's a premiership winner at Collingwood. What a start! What a start to his career that kid's had. Anyway, the two draws are going to definitely hurt them, especially the one against Freo. Because realistically speaking, that's the difference between them.
Well, they're in the 8.
They're in the 8. Yeah, even just one of those points, 1 point either way in one of those games. But you look at the Kangaroos game is an interesting one, right? So the Kangaroos game, you look at that, they were down by 50, 60 points, managed to come back and win. And here's what it was for Collingwood for me this year. That aura that they have, and the commentators kept on banging on about, was that, it's Collingwood, they can come from anywhere and win. They didn't have that this year. They tried, but they didn't have that same force. They weren't as effective when it came to those last minute comebacks and scrambles as they were the previous year, which is what they kind of built their entire 2023 off. The only real example of that I can think about this year is that North Melbourne game. And to be fair to North Melbourne, they were playing North Melbourne, who literally spent all their tickets in the first half and had nothing left to do in the second half. So it's a really hard one to kind of rate for Collingwood because obviously reigning premier is missing the finals, some solid wins. 1 second. I think my smoke alarm is going off. Yes, Jesse, I still have a house. Thank you. Thank you for checking. My brother decided to cook some dinner and he didn't open any of the windows. Smoke does that to a smoke alarm. But things that aren't on fire this year was Collingwood. What'd you give him this year, Jesse?
I gave them a 3, and I don't think I could have gone much higher because you just purely look at the metric of Premier's missing finals. It's hard to justify much higher than that.
Oh, I was a little bit kinder to him. I gave him a 5. I think.
Okay.
But based on Premier's not making the finals, but all other things considered, they still only just missed out on that spot. They made the best of what they could with what they had. Still think Craig's a great coach. I think he still did good things with them. In terms of the losses and those things, I can't think of any like specific negatives for Collingwood this year. I can't pinpoint one thing and go shit. Do you know what I mean? So I think
that's fair.
Right down the middle. 5 from me. One word to describe Collingwood's 2025. Jesse, what do you reckon?
Redemption with a question mark.
Mm-hmm. Mine was Renaissance. And I'll chuck a question mark on there as well. Because why not? Because, they'll come back. They'll be back in and around it next year, you would assume. But we'll see. But, Jesse.
Liam.
That does it. We've got through in pretty good time, actually, all the other 6 teams, considering we spent about 40 minutes.
20 more minutes talking about Freeman. Okay, and I think this should happen.
Okay. No, that's, again, it's its own special.
He's cut my mic off. Unbelievable.
I would never do such a thing. But no, that'll be it. So make sure you stay in touch with us for Just the Tips coming up on YouTube as well. It is going to be a rather pointless episode. You'll see why once you listen to it and watch it. Pointless not in the sense that, you shouldn't watch it. You should definitely still come watch it. Come on.
Great
But you'll find,
advertising them.
yeah, I know, right? As soon as I said it, I was like, doesn't sound very good, does it? But no, come watch us on YouTube at CM Perfect _AFL is where we are at. CM Centimeter Perfect is the name. Opa. Jesse, send us home.
Well, you basically just did the outro for me, so that's great.
No. You do your own. You do your own. It's good.
Thank you for watching and or listening to the Centimeter Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you're leaving a review on your preferred podcasting platform, liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on our various social media entities. But the best way to promote us is word of mouth. Tell a friend, tell a family member. You're at one of the finals on this weekend. First of all, lucky you. Second of all, make sure you tell every single person in your block ad nauseum that you listen to this podcast. If there's one thing that people like, it's pretentious people telling them they have a podcast they listen to. Make sure you do that for us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on the Centimeter Perfect AFL podcast.
Bye, everybody.